Welcome to Science and Spirituality on Supreme Master Television. Today we will discuss the holographic structure of the universe that can explain many things around us. According to many Eastern spiritual views, our world is an illusion created by Maya. Derived from Sanskrit, the word Maya is the combination of Ma, meaning not, and Ya, meaning that. It is believed that Maya's function is to conceal truth from our consciousness. The world that we experience and the life we live are reflections of our thoughts. But how can we doubt everything we perceive and call that illusion? The pain after bumping our head, or the chilled sensation when outside in the cold? Where is the border of the illusion? If you watch the science documentary What the Bleep Do We Know, maybe you remember an example discussed by one of the scientists. The event hypothetically happened over 500 years ago. Think about an indigenous American standing on a Caribbean beach looking at the ocean. When Christopher Columbus' ships arrived in the Americas for the first time, the man on the seashore does not see any ships. Why can't he see them? Some scientists say it is because he does not have in his mind the same conceptual model as we do, which would be to see many large vessels floating on the sea. But could it be that these ships do not actually exist? The truth of the matter is the vessels only in the imagination of whoever imagines them. We can find a similar description of this phenomenon in the Judaic Kabbalah, one of the world's oldest collections of spiritual wisdom rooted nearly 4,000 years ago. According to Kabbalah, perception of reality through our five senses blocks us from perceiving the true eternal reality. This principle can be explained using a simple model. A person can be viewed as a closed box with five openings, which are our senses. Our surroundings are the upper reality, so when things approach us, they meet a material barrier around the person. Instead of entering inside, these things can only be sensed by the five sensors, and can only be interpreted by an inner program that produces the picture of reality at the end, like the output of a machine. Enhancements to this sensory system do not matter, even when the Hubble telescope, a super magnifying microscope, or a sophisticated particle detector is employed, because it is the program inside the box which creates reality. The function reduces the outside spiritual world to what we call objective reality. This program is called egoism, and the box acts as a filter interpreting all senses according to how things relate to me and affect me. All five senses work through the same program, and the person as a result is locked into a subjective image of things viewed from inside the box, and has no sense of what really exists outside of the box, nor is able to judge his or her own life when viewing from this state. Only from a higher spiritual level can people view their lives, make a correct judgment about themselves, and thus be liberated from the program. But what does modern science say about this relativism? How the human brain and mind work as a whole still remains a mystery to present-day scientists. What is certain is that our sensations are converted into electrical signals when entering the brain, inside of which an electrical model of the outer reality is created. Thus, it is an equivalent view to the Kabbalah account revealed long ago. If we say that real thing is something that always exists with no gaps, then the outside world is not real. In our sleep, meditation, or even when we are very busy, there are times that we are not conscious of what is going on around us. Our brain can also be controlled by outer electrical devices or chemistry, changing our perception of reality dramatically. In other words, the brain in many respects behaves like a normal electrochemical device, although there are possible other subtle mechanisms that occur on a molecular and deeper microscopic levels, governed by quantum physics. In 1982, a remarkable physics experiment took place at the University of Paris. A research team, led by physicist Dr. Alain Aspect, discovered that under certain conditions, subatomic particles are able to instantaneously influence each other regardless of the distance by which they are separated. As Dr. Albert Einstein showed us over 100 years ago, no communication can exceed the speed of light in physical space, and time necessarily must elapse. Thus, the two particles must have been non-locally connected beyond physical space in order to interact simultaneously. Dr. David Bohm, one of the foremost physicists of the 20th century, was bold in his thinking and concluded that the separation of the objects in Dr. Aspect's experiment was just an illusion. He postulated that the ultimate nature of physical reality is not a collection of separate objects, but is an undivided whole. The whole is comprised of invisible ether that is constantly in a state of evolution and is from what all things arise. According to Dr. Bohm's view, both mind and matter are united in so-called hollow movement. He compared it to holography. In other words, the universe is like a grand hologram. We'll pause for some messages and soon return to discuss more about holography and the holographic worldview. You are watching Science and Spirituality on Supreme Master Television. Welcome back to Science and Spirituality. Today's show is about holographic nature of the universe. We have just discussed the wholeness of our world, which, according to Dr. David Bohm, can be viewed as a grand hologram. But let us first review how a hologram picture is created. The basic idea behind Dr. Denis Gabor's invention of holography in 1948 was that in order for perfect optical imaging to take place, all the information has to be used, not just the intensity of the light waves as in regular photography, but also the phase of the waves. To make a hologram of an object, the coherent light of a laser beam is split into two beams. The first beam illuminates an object, while a second one is bounced off the object. The combined interference pattern of both beams is recorded by a photosensitive film or a plate. After the film is developed, it looks like a meaningless swirl of light and dark lines, but as soon as we illuminate the film with a laser beam, an amazing three-dimensional image of original object appears. The picture has a remarkable property in addition to 3D imaging. A hologram of an object can be cut into several pieces, and unlike normal photographs, where each piece would be a part of the puzzle, each piece of a hologram becomes a smaller, complete hologram itself. In other words, this smaller hologram contains the identical image and all the information of the full hologram. According to Dr. David Bohm, our universe is like a grand hologram, showing a whole in every part of itself. Applying the holographic universe idea to Dr. Aspey's experiment, one can look at separated objects in our physical world as pieces of the whole hologram. Physically, they are separated, but they show the same image of the entity. This wholeness can also be recognized by using an example of fish swimming in an aquarium, a model which inspired the thinking of Dr. Bohm. Let's say we have fish in an aquarium being filmed at the same time with two video cameras from two different angles. Each camera's output is displayed on two separate monitors. When watching the monitors simultaneously, it appears as if two different fish are moving in different directions. When one turns, the other also makes a turn at the same moment. Thus, it seems these two fish are communicating with each other, but what you actually see is the same fish. Now you probably can see why the separation of objects could be an illusion. Similarly, if our universe contains a deeper level of reality, all things in the universe could be interconnected, although in 3D physical space they appear separate. In a holographic world, space is no longer viewed as fundamental, as nothing is truly separate from anything else. The same applies to time in reality of this super hologram. The past, present, and future can exist simultaneously and be spatially connected. This suggests that given the proper tools, it might be possible to reach into the implicit level of reality and pull out scenes from the long-forgotten past or from the future. This earthly super hologram could be like a matrix that has given birth to everything in our universe. At the very least, it contains every subatomic particle that has been or ever will be in any configuration of matter and energy that is possible. Indeed, back in 1920, Dr. Carl Lashley found that memories are not extinguished by drastic lesions or surgeries to the brain. Thus, memories must be dispersed through the brain. In 1960, Dr. Carl Pribram, an American neurophysiologist, had the insight that the human brain can be viewed as a hologram to explain how our memory functions. Additional evidence was found by Dr. Pribram as a result of collaboration with Dr. Bohm. The scientists showed that the brain's visual cortex response looked like a mathematical Gabor function, a characteristic of holographic optical images. We know that the human brain stores about 10 billion bits of information over an average human lifetime, equivalent to 5 sets of Encyclopedia Britannica. Based on our holographic experience with optics, such an amount of information can be easily stored on holographic film in an area of 1 square centimeter. Thus, our brain has enormous potential of information storage capacity for future use. We also have the incredible ability to retrieve information very fast. All of these features, capacity, speed, and efficiency of the brain's memory, and so on, become easier to understand if we assume the brain operates using holographic principles. This is because every piece of information would be infinitely cross-connected with other pieces of information. Dr. Pribram also believes that our brain constructs reality by relying on input from various frequency domains. The brain is able to translate the avalanche of frequencies it receives via the senses. For example, from the highest frequencies of visible light at about 10 to the power of 15 Hz, a million billion Hz, down to lowest frequencies of audible sound at about 20 Hz. Because the holography principle relies on wave interference, holography is the best tool for sorting out such frequencies and dividing them up to support conventional perception. It is no wonder that Dr. Pribram's theory has gained increasing support among neurophysiologists to explain the brain's memory function. In 1980, Argentinian researcher Hugo Zuccarelli extended the holographic idea to the world of acoustics by his invention of holophonics, the oral equivalent of visual holography. Mr. Zuccarelli believes that the human auditory system emits sound, which then serves as a reference sound that combines with incoming sound. The combination forms an interference pattern inside the ear. The nature of this pattern is sensitive to the direction of the incoming sound. Therefore, it can explain how the brain then interprets the sound data. It can also infer the direction of the incoming sound, even without us moving our heads, and even if only one ear is listening. Finally, Dr. David Bohm extended Dr. Pilgrim's holographic brain idea and suggested that perhaps our brain is a smaller piece of the universal hologram. Thus, we may attain full knowledge of the universe. Each mind has a different limited perspective of the universal hologram based on our varied life experiences, but each outlook is valid, like looking at holographic film at various angles. Now, if our brain mathematically constructs objective reality by interpreting external frequencies, like collecting light into vessels as elaborated in the Judaic Kabbalah, then our world would ultimately be a projection of a deeper order of existence that is beyond both space and time. Whether the holographic paradigm of the world becomes accepted in science still remains to be seen, but it is safe to say it has already influenced the thinking of many scientists. Some believe it may solve some mysteries of our world, such as telepathy or paranormal phenomena. Thank you, holographic viewers, for watching this edition of Science and Spirituality. Words of Wisdom is up next, right after noteworthy news. Please join us again next week, and God bless.